There's three questions I always ask somebody if I'm going to get any advice from them, because I have watched so many entrepreneurs build $100 million business, busting their ass, risking everything, and then selling it for 20.
Your genius that I see, again, from outside, we talked about before we started recording, is your ability to understand collaboration, the equity, even like your previous companies.
Yep.
I grew up in software, so it's kind of built into the DNA, right?
Yep.
When you do a venture-backed company, this is the cap table at different levels of, and you have your ESOP, you have the employee stock option pool, and like it was all kind of given to me. I didn't have to think about it. It's kind of like tried and true. That's not the only way to do it, but it seems like that's what, again, I just assume like with Gary and Grant and all these other businesses you're involved in, that you've gotten to a place where you're like, hey, I'm really good at figuring out comp structure, incentive process. You know what I mean? Because like that's the thing, even a Buffett does so well, where he's like, I've designed the game where if people play it, everybody wins. And a lot of entrepreneurs are, it's mine.
Well,
they don't want to let go. They don't understand how to actually like create the bigger pie. I mean, how do you think about that?
I think the reality is that it's the path of least resistance, and the more people you have incentivized and aligned, the more they're pulling the business versus you as the owners pushing the business.
Yeah.
The problem is for the small business owner is the advice that they get around this whole subject is so pathetic. It's so horrible. They go to their bullshit attorneys that don't know what they're doing. They go to their bullshit accountants who give them free advice, or worse, charge them for shitty advice.
Yeah.
The biggest break point from 1 to 5 is partnerships, ill-prepared, poor operating agreements, no exit structure in the operating agreements, no operational requirements in the operating agreements, no performance requirements in the operational agreements. So all of a sudden the business does well. One partner starts playing golf, and the other one's busting his ass or her ass. And so it's just so poorly constructed. And then they're all told, don't give equity because it's so most horrible. I guarantee you, I'd say 50 to 75 million. I see one of two things. I see such poorly constructed efforts to try to align using equity and incentives. Or like I tell business owners, if you're under 100 million, don't even use the word ESOP.
Yeah.
And if you're over 100 million, still don't use the word ESOP. There are better structures, because as soon as you give 1% to somebody, they think they can dictate to you, oh, you bought a new truck, boss, or you're spending money on an airplane, or I'm going to sue you now. So they start to think, these little LPs start to think they have some kind of operational control, or they have some opinion, or they have some say. And it shifts the business from, hey, we're building to a high performance, to what's in it for me and why am I not? So use profit interests correctly.
Yeah.
And most people go, I don't even know how to structure it and whatever. So they try to do things and they're sold a bunch of products.
Talking to the wrong person.
Always talking to the wrong person. So this is the thesis behind Grant, sell or be sold. You know, if you're not selling an idea or a concept, somebody else is selling you. And so unfortunately, you got to unwind all that shit too. And when you unwind it, it causes other issues. And this is what I tell business owners. There's three questions I always ask somebody if I'm going to get any advice from them. First question, what's the most amount of money you've personally ever made in a year? It's important for me to know, because if you haven't made more than me, it's a check mark for me.
Yeah, it's not hard stop, but it's at least I can.
But the second question becomes a hard stop, which is, what's the biggest thing you've ever built, quantified by number of employees, revenue, and profitability? Like, you need to tell me that if I'm going to listen to you. And then the third, it's not a hard stop, but it compounds it, is what's the biggest exit you've ever had? Now, people are like, do you really ask those questions? Absolutely. If I'm going to talk to a mentor. Now, if I go sit down with John Maxwell, I'm going to use a different series of questions, because I'm looking for leadership enhancement. I'm not looking for someone to teach me how to build my business, right? And so the reason this is important is to know which people you're going to ask questions of before you even let it in your brain, is because I have watched so many entrepreneurs build $100 million business, busting their ass, risking everything, and then selling it for 20. And I've watched entrepreneurs build a $25 million business, doing it pretty laid back, not much risk, and sell it for $150 million. So which guy do I want to learn from? Because I don't want to do it the hard way. I've also watched people,
and the people that have won, sometimes they can't even tell you how they did it.
Exactly. So if you ask those questions like, well, to be honest, I don't really know. I just got lucky. Well, okay. Well, now I can't. I'm not getting lucky.
Yeah.
Like, that's not going to be something that happens to me. So learning to qualify who you're listening to, what you're asking them, what you're letting in your mind, because most people collect their data through polling. Polling. What should I do? What do you think? And they're asking all the wrong people who've never done it, versus pulling. Pulling. Like, who could pull me up to the next level? Who actually has experience? Who has knowledge? Who has information? Who's willing to help me? If I'm going to try to build my business through polling, Polling, I'm going to fail horribly, because
you're trying to synthesize this information with no context.
And nobody knows.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And people bullshit.